Hello and happy almost not Wednesday anymore, but still definitely Wednesday, everybody. Today we are going to be doing a read-through of Tinto Talks number 33, which is going to be detailing the diplomacy in the upcoming Europa Universalis 5 game. This is a relatively long dev diary. I think this is one of the longest ones we've seen so far, so we're going to be going through it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Tinto Talks. Hello. This is a happy Wednesday. Indeed it is, but it's almost not a happy Wednesday anymore. Not because it's not happy, but because it's almost not Wednesday. Except for you, who's probably watching this not on a Wednesday anymore, unless you watch it in the future, in which case it was a happy Wednesday when it was Wednesday last week, where we discuss the details of our rather secret game, Project Caesar, or if you like to pronounce stuff correctly, because you've taken a class of Latin, Project Kaiser, or as we like to call it, Project Tizar. Not teaser, Tizar. Today we will go into how diplomatic system works in Project Caesar. The core of the system is very similar to other grand strategy games, but has much in common with EU4, Imperator, and Victoria 2 in particular. Notably, this is something, Johan will generally reference Victoria 2 more. As far as I understand, he was on the Victoria 2 project, but was not on the Victoria 3 project. Some of you may be very familiar with some of the thing we're talking about today, but not everyone reading this will have played 5,000 hours in every grand strategy game we've made. Fair enough. So there are parts of today's Tinto Talks that will be like, WTF, man, I know this already for many of you. And so let's see what's kind of the same. Although it's been a hot minute since we played EU4, so there will be, I guess, some fresh stuff. Really, I do think diplomacy is something that is somewhat lacking in kind of the flagship game that we play, which is Victoria 3, and so I think that this will be a little bit of a breath of fresh air, not a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh air, and so we will probably be making comparisons to Victoria 3. Also, when it comes to diplomacy, we have based our interface solutions for diplomatic actions on two paths. First, when you have a country selected, you can get the classic way of seeing diplomatic actions related to that country, but we also have the sometimes more useful way of selecting a diplomatic action and then seeing which countries would accept it. Okay, so that's a UI thing. I believe that's present in EU4, and so happy to see it be making a return. First up, we have diplomats, which is kind of a system of a resource that I don't really like that much in general, but it is one that is relatively simplistic, and so if you're trying not to make things overly complicated, it definitely makes sense that it's going to be seeing a return. While this game might not have the immortal envoys of EU4 that limited how much diplomacy you could do at one time, in Project Caesar you have a diplomatic corps, or diplomats as we refer to them as. Okay. This represents how much diplomacy a country can do at a given time. Some advances, laws, or societal values will increase this amount, and there are also some buildings that will have an impact. Now, I do like a kind of change on how they are accrued that has been made, which is that you accrue fractions of a diplomat, because everyone knows you build people from the ground up. You know, first you get their legs, then you get their torso, and then eventually you have built an entire diplomat. But okay, jokes aside, I really do like that we have this maximum threshold. We see that it's determined by country size and kind of a base value, and then we have various things that are going to generate a fraction of a diplomat. I think that this granularity allows you to have more features and more mechanics that can influence this type of thing, and so overall I think it's good. And also, it does look like we store diplomats. So this is maybe a weird abstraction because you can have a maximum of 4 diplomats, and we generate diplomats each month. So, okay, let's jump in. Let's read some more about this. So this represents how much diplomacy a country could do at a given time. Some advances, laws, or societal values will increase this amount, and there are also some buildings that you can that will have some impact. Every diplomatic action you do requires at least 1 diplomat, and while they are a renewable resource, you have to ration them. Everyone knows you build them slowly from the ground up. Opinions. In almost every grand strategy game we've made, we've tracked relations between two countries, often in a natural and intuitive range of -200 to +200. I kind of like this system from EU4 more than kind of how Victoria 3 tracks it, which is -100 to +100, but okay. Early on the relation was a single value, but at EU4 over a decade ago we introduced a concept that country A could view country B in one way and country B could view country A in another way. This game is no different in that regard. Fantastic. I do think that this is kind of preferable. I really don't like how in Victoria 3 in particular, you can be trying to garner a country liking you a lot, and be with the aim of trying to get a specific relationship with them, and then they can go and declare war and get a ton of infamy. And when they get a ton of infamy, this will decrease your relations with them. So because of something they did, they now like you less, and it's harder for you to engage in diplomacy with them. And so having the dual relationships gets rid of that type of situation that can arise. And so I do think that that's good. These opinions are calculated depending on the various states between two countries, like religion, culture, diplomacy, and much more, and could have temporary impacts from actions. Someone commented before that the green on white was actually hard to read. If anyone has an opinion on that, please let me know in the comments, and then I could try and figure out if there's a way to make me highlight in a different color, but I think that has to do with the website rather than something on my end, but we could try and figure that out. Opinion is how much a country likes or dislikes another country. The difference between trust and opinion is that a high opinion will stop a country from being hostile, but we would need trust to be able to work together. So I do think I like the kind of differentiation between trust and relations, and I do think that this is something that's present in EU4. You will have multiple ways to influence this with diplomacy, but the most direct ones you will use is improve relations and send gift diplomatic actions. Again, looks very much like EU4. We do improve relations, yada yada, and send gifts. This sends you an instant opinion increase for a sum of money. Now this is monthly. Is this going to have a maintenance cost? It doesn't seem that the tooltip really kind of has something in mind. So I wonder if this has a maintenance cost of a fraction of a diplomat or an entire diplomat or something like this, or if it just takes us, we just need to put it in place and then it's in place for a year. It'll be interesting to see. I generally think that if it's going to eat a lot of diplomacy, I imagine this improved relations will eat a lot of diplomacy relative to the relation improved, but in exchange you're not having to eat other resources like sending gifts, which would eat gold, in exchange for you being able to preserve some diplomacy, relatively speaking. In EU4 you can't just repeatedly send more gifts though, you can only have one of the sent gift modifiers. Trust. Trust represents how likely one country finds that another country will act honorably towards them. I really think that trust would be something nice to have a little bit more in EU4, in Victoria 3 in particular, or like I just think of all the times you reverse sway into a diplomatic play, and then you wait till the war pops, and so you get what you swayed in for, and then you just like capitulate out and you leave the war. Obviously, people should feel betrayed, and I think long-term cultivating trust and this type of stuff, have this being something that the AI considers with how they behave towards you, I think is a good thing. Whether friend or foe, trust is a crucial component in forging lasting agreements. Trust is hard to get and easy to lose. I assume if you break any type of agreement, you lose trust. You could always send a diplomat to profess trust, will increase their trust in you, but your diplomatic reputation will be lowered for the next 5 years. Fair enough. Next, we have favors. Favors represent how much one country has promised or otherwise owes to another country. Really liked this system in EU4, and really liked how if you are particularly a small country and you like allied a big country, how it would be asymmetric in terms of how fast favors were generated. The small country would get favors really slowly, big countries would get them very quickly, and this allowed for the asymmetry in like military power to be kind of resolved in terms of the military alliance, in that it would take a long time to be able to get help from someone considerably bigger than you. Favors can be spent to ask the other country to do something. I assume in like joining in a war, if favors get too unbalanced, refusing to do these things could cause a loss of trust or even diplomatic reputation. And so here we see, I assume the AI is going to really dislike doing this type of thing because they won't want to hurt their trust. And you as the player maybe do or don't want to do this depending on what the favor is or what they're asking, this type of thing. You gain favors by helping your allies and supporting them at need. Okay. You can also use some of your diplomats on currying favors. This will reduce the monthly diplomats you gain each month, so it will effectively have a maintenance cost, but at the same time they grant your country favors on the target country and they get favors on you. That is interesting that it is symmetric. Okay, we have currying favors, which is giving half a favor each month. We have no frame of reference on how useful that is, and cultural influence versus, ooh, that is interesting. Yes, these numbers feel 100% balanced. Yeah, the cultural influence and cultural tradition, these being modifiers, I don't think we've seen these modifiers before, and these are interesting. I wonder what those could mean in terms of kind of downstream effects. If having, I really like. So this is like a bit of a tangent, but in Civilization 6, I really like how you can go for a cultural victory. I think that I like it when there's more ways to play than just like militaristically stomping out everyone. And if cultural influence is a resource or a mechanic that you can play towards, and it will do stuff like allow you to get more people to join you in wars because it will allow you to generate more favors when you're currying favor because you have a nicer culture, then this is an interesting kind of ingress of letting you focus on things other than just like min-maxing military and still gaining very significant advantages if you can do this to gain more favor. This is pretty interesting. Be very curious to see if we see anything more about this in the future. I don't think we're going to see anything more in this dev diary specifically, but okay. Spy networks. Spies are something that just kind of historically in grand strategy games never really feel very good, or strategy games in general, unless the game is like a 100% espionage game, because it always feels quite a bit divorced from like how a spy would actually operate. And a big part of that is like generally in grand strategy games, you kind of have perfect information when you really shouldn't, and the real value of spies is information. And so it's like, okay. But okay, spy networks. This describes the extent to which a country has infiltrated another with a network of informants, double agents, and general turncoats, and thus how much inside knowledge they have of the country. It can be used to perform a variety of insidious diplomatic actions. Insidious, an underused word, I would say. You need to use a diplomat to start building a spy network, not a sty network. We're not in a barn. And while it is then active, you will gain less diplomats each month. So we have this kind of spending a diplomat for an action and then maintenance cost to using diplomats, or fractions of a diplomat. So what you do is you just take off the diplomat's foot and you send them to the country that you're currently putting in the diplomatic action, and the diplomatic action will renew with the use of the foot of the diplomat. The speed at which with which your spy network is built up depends on your spy network construction capacity, okay, and the target country's counter-espionage that reduces it. This is probably an entire topic for another dev diary. The size of your spy network in a country impacts your siege ability and how much aggressive expansion you will get from treating them badly. That is interesting. Spy network is increasing or can decrease AE. That is fascinating. We see that we're getting network construction. Counter-espionage is a factor in here. Why is our network construction so bad? The truth hurts. And why is Portugal's counter-espionage so bad? Is it really that bad? We don't know, because we don't have a frame of reference, but we do see that this is developing. And I assume if you were to hover these tooltips, you would see various variables that are influence the thing, and I really like how you can kind of approach these mechanics. The mechanics overall like tend to look relatively simplified, but have a bunch of like inputs to what's going on, and allowing you to play in kind of different ways. Okay, we have diplomatic reputation. Again, this is a lot of this is kind of carried over from EU4. This represents how highly regarded country is in international relations. There are advances that will increase it. Notably, if you have a fancier car, people will regard you more highly, especially if it's loud and it's outside. There are advances that will increase it, but this is also increased by your country's prestige and decreased by your AE. I really, really love when there is incentive to stay low on the AE or even keep it at 0. One thing I don't like about Victoria 3 is that for you in Victoria 3 as a play pattern, Infamy is kind of a resource in terms of how you should think about it, and you don't get anything for being at 0. There's no ticking bonus or penalty, and the penalties kind of just come in at 25 infamy. And so as long as you like operate, the only thing negative you get from infamy is you get negative relations hits when you start a diplomatic play, really. And so because of that, you never want to not be at war. Whereas in EU4, there's like scaling modifiers where as you get more and more AE, if I recall correctly, you will get like more negative modifiers, or maybe it's overextension, or maybe it's war weariness. I forget. There's a lot of modifiers going on, but being at 0 has significant value or some value such that it doesn't feel bad when you stay at 0. But in Victoria 3, staying at 0 kind of feels bad. Okay, AI countries can look very much at diplomatic reputation when it comes to accepting diplomatic offers. So this is going to... Here's our diplomatic reputation, and if you've played EU4, this does heavily influence whether or not they will accept actions, and so it allows you to kind of play more of a diplomacy game, which I think is kind of a bit of a fun thing. All right, we have diplomatic range. This is a concept we introduced in Imperator. It's also present in CK, where you can't just do diplomacy with every country on the map. In earlier games, we had this hidden from the player, and it was merely something the AI kind of used. Now it is something that matters, and is based primarily on the advances and rank of a country. Okay. Diplomatic range limits the physical distance of our diplomats can travel to conduct diplomacy. Of course, we built these diplomats from the ground up, assembled like Lego. The distance traveled is from one capital to the other. Somewhat interesting. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Here we see Aragon, what they can reach in 1337, which appears to be a really big chunk of the map, to be honest. But, okay. Makes sense. Next up, we have rivals. In Project Caesar, we will have Brutus, and Brutus will stab us violently, which will kind of prolong the development of the game with a few differences. Okay. No, but we will have a system of rivals similar to EU4, a few differences. E2 Brutus. First of all, selection of rivals is less opaque and follows a few simple rules. Yes. A valid rival is someone within a geographical area that has similar higher rank or shares culture group. The geographical area for an empire is the same continent or adjacent subcontinent, while the country, while for a country is the same size or adjacent province definition. While for a country is the same area or adjacent province definition? Wait, what? Okay. Of course, you can always rival someone that declared you as a rival. Makes sense. Secondly, if you don't pick enough rivals, your actions that increase aggressive expansion will give you more. Your spy network will become far weaker. Interesting. Okay. Thirdly, you can always create a casus belli on your rivals if you have a spy network built up there. Finally, there's no cooldown on replacing a rival, but it will cost you 25 stability. Oof. That sounds like a lot of stability, but I'm assuming it's like out of 100 instead, and like trends towards an equilibrium, a little bit like Imperator. It's interesting that it causes you to get more aggressive expansion by not having rivals. I don't know what the theminess explanation behind that might be. Remember that a rival is a country that is perceived as having a conflicting interest and will block you from having alliances. Any countries that share rivals will get high opinions with each other. And so you can use this as a tool to make it so that they will accept more agreements, or this is kind of, if I recall correctly, what you would do in EU4. So we have, next up is diplomatic capacity, as suggested by many of you back in Tinto Talk number 12. And again, this is kind of, we see more EU4 here. As suggested by many of you back in Tinto Talks number 12, we changed the diplomatic relations slot system to become a diplomatic capacity system instead, where the cost of an alliance depends on the power of an ally, and similarly, subjects cost different things depending on their type and size. That is an excellent change. And so you can have, you know, a bunch of little allies or one big ally, and it will scale accordingly. That's a fantastic change. And we see our diplomatic capacity is going to also similarly scale up, and I really like that it's scaling up based on like this kind of fractional system or this smaller number system, rather than just being 1, 2, 3, 4 type of thing. And we see whatever outward is, it is giving us an additional kind of 0.12 relative to our baseline. So that seems cool. Diplomatic actions and treaties. Today we will not talk more about unions or subjects, as they will be covered in a later Tinto Talks. We will, however, thoroughly discuss as many as possible other types of diplomatic treaties and actions. One of the reasons why this dev diary is particularly long. And by dev diary, I of course mean Tinto talk about the big top, big secret game. Diplomatic actions cost a diplomat to do, but not all of them create a treaty. Okay, a treaty is something that lasts over a period of time and can be anything from alliance to food access for your armies. Friendly actions. This category of actions also include some of the ones mentioned above, like improving opinions, professing trust, and currying favors. Some of the other friendly actions include the following. Some of the other friendly actions include the following. Okay. Defensively, some of you may recognize this from Imperator, but it's basically a defensive alliance. Sounds great. Guarantees. In this game, you can also ask a more powerful country to guarantee you. Cool. Proposed ruler. If you got adults of your dynasty that are not your current ruler, you can propose that they become a ruler of another monarchy if they are in a regency without a valid heir. Okay. That last sentence really carries that being like a logical thing. But that is an interesting one. Share maps. This allows you to give maps of another country, of an area to another country if they have not discovered it. Definitely a useful function, we hope. Anti-piracy agreement. Interesting. Is this the favors? An anti-piracy agreement? This will prevent Portugal from running privateers in your waters for just 50 favors. For just the low price of 50 favors, you can get any country to not send privateers to you near you. That seems like... Can't we just vibe? Is it really going to take 50 favors? Interesting. Now, I think that we were generating half a favor a month, so that's 6 favors a year. So you would have to be generating favors for like close to a decade in order to get this type of agreement based on like what we saw, unless you have a way of generating fast. So that seems like a really big investment, but okay. The hostile actions. These are the actions that tend to be rather offensive to the receiving part and damages the opinion and trust. Some of these include intervene in war, so we'll jump in on the side of a war. Isolate from allies. This will make them break an alliance they have, but will cost you a fair amount of favors. Interesting that it costs favors. Send insult. Reduces their opinion of you, but they will get a causeless belly on you. You will say that their mother smelt of elderberries and their father was a hamster. Threaten war. If you've got a causeless belly for a province, you can use this to threaten war, and they will have a chance of accepting it. Only kingdoms and empires can do this. And next we have covert actions. These are the actions you need a spy network in the target country to be able to do. While you could view them as hostile, they are a bit more sneaky here. Everyone can be a little sneaky sometimes. Some of these include the following. Corrupt officials. Reduce the effectiveness of their cabinet. Womp womp. Infiltrate administration. Remove the fog of war over a country for a set period of time. This one is maybe... I hope that this one's really useful. Fog of war, in the removal of it, I hope that you like can't really know how much armies people have, and you have like an estimate, and then this like gives you kind of a more exact number and like this type of stuff. I don't know. The thing is like information concealing is a little bit tough in games that are complex, because what ends up happening is it's really information concealment is generally a mechanic that is really unfun to newer players, and it makes the game a lot harder for newer players. But it'll add a lot of like strategic depth if you are not a newer player, and so maybe mixed bag on that one. Steal maps for when you really want that map out of the Caribbean. Support rebels. This is something unlocks in the Age of Renaissance that can help you to truly weaken your enemies. Okay, and then economic actions, or economy actions. These tend to be actions more of gray zone between totally friendly and totally hostile, and are more or less related to the economy part of the game. Some of these actions include block building in a country. This will block them from building buildings in your locations, which can be useful when you don't want some English trade offices in your cities. Makes sense. Embargo nation. This will reduce the market attraction of their markets on your locations, making them more likely to trade in other markets. Their trades will no longer be allowed to enter your territory as well. I think trades have to like start from one place and travel back to your place, and so if you do this and they can't pass through you, this is going to brick them. It'd be interesting if you could try and cut off resources, particular resources. And maybe this isn't as relevant in this time period, but I'm thinking Vic 3 and being able to cut off either oil or rubber is an interesting thing if the If the trade has to run through your waters, then you can stop them from trading those things. You can stop them from using PMs, like that type of thing. Maybe that's a little too deep. But request a loan. This is something you usually send to a banking country so that you can borrow money from them, and they will squeeze you for the rest of eternity. And now we have access actions. Man, I wish we had military access in Victor 3, but we don't. Instead, we only have in violate sovereignty. There are 3 types of access here. Military access, where you can march your armies through another country's territory. Food access, where you can have your army supplied by another country's territory. And fleet basing rights, where you're allowed to base your ships in their ports. All of them can have the option to be offered to another country and requested from them, while military access can now be requested to be bought. Military access has to be bought? Interesting. I think that's a change from EU4. I think EU4 you get it for free if you have good enough relations. Of course, there are many other country-specific diplomatic actions, but they will be talked about after Christmas when we start with the flavor talk. And the subject nations will be talked about in the Tinto talks after subjects. Stay tuned. Next week will be something completely different. Completely different. It will also be Wednesday next week. And so will it really be that different? Will it just be yet another Happy Wednesday? I suppose they could say Happy Tuesday and release it on a Tuesday. That would be different. I almost said it would be different, but it would be different as well. Kind of happy. I'm generally happy with the way EU4 does diplomacy. This kind of seems mostly to be EU4. And so there's that, but I'm pretty happy with this and what they seem to be cooking up here. Specifically that one change where it takes diplomatic capacity. I think this is such a fantastic change where the capacity is proportional to like how big they are. Is really, really nice. I hope that if someone grows, it doesn't immediately nuke your agreements with them. That would kind of suck. So you could run over capacity if they grow or whatever, and you just can't make new agreements. And so this kind of will, in some sense, lock your agreements in at some point. But I really do like that you can try and build an alliance network of smaller powers with the same amount of diplomatic capacity as opposed to just having one big ally or like 2 big allies or this type of thing. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that, have a happy Wednesday. Or for you, probably Thursday.